but I think they need to ride this out. I think they need to find out exactly what they have in Deshaun Watson. Can he play some functional football for them?
99 was more functional than this.
Yeah, I think it's just important that we continue to do everything we can to play good, sound football.
Hey, guys, we're bringing in one of the worst starting quarterbacks in football that doesn't really look like he believes in himself right now.
Kevin Stefanski, for me, is now a bad coach who's capable of coaching good football.
Deshaun Watson was 0 for his last 25 third downs.
And then you watch Stefanski. He's one of those guys, looks like his happiness is gone.
I think Deshaun gives us the best chance to win.
Our co-host on a Tuesday is one of your leading scorers, and he's a safety. That's a functional offense.
Cleveland has now scored once in its last 29 drives.
It's just the stubbornness of we have to justify the contract and the draft picks.
But if you're not going to bench a quarterback, surely there must be something else you can do.
Star wide receiver Amari Cooper has been traded.
I mean, it's come to the point where I know what I'm going to get.
The Browns have now become the first team in 10 years to score under 20 points in each of their first 6 games this season.
There's nothing to be positive that's positive about the Cleveland offense right now.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel. This is a life sentence. It's over.
I don't know if I've ever seen an organization cope harder than the 2024 Browns. For the 6th time this season, Deshaun Watson has put a less than average performance out on the field, yet the front office and his few remaining supporters continue to lower the bar for what is acceptable quarterback play. And let's remember, this is not the Eagles of 2022 or 23 or even late last season. This is a very underwhelming, undercoached football team. And the truth is that the Browns front office and the coaching staff, they know he's not good. They know he is not the Watson who they traded for. But these small crumbs of success, like going 11 for 12 in the second half, are satiating a starving franchise whose standards have dropped so low that they will accept scraps as a 5-star meal. Jimmy Haslam, Paul DePodesta, Andrew Berry, and maybe even Kevin Stefanski want to be right so badly that they are ready to punt on the season as a whole. And this was a game that the Browns should have won and would have won if they scored a single offensive touchdown. In our Patreon preview, I talked about how the Browns had to try and make the Eagles win this game through the air, force Jalen Hurts to make bad decisions, make him have to be Superman, shut down the run, don't let them run the ball down your throat. And the Browns did that. They really contained Saquon Barkley. 18 carries for a little over 40 yards. That's enormous. They did their part. The D-line held their gaps better. They rallied to the ball, and they gave the offense possessions to try and take a lead. The additions of Mike Hall getting Maurice Hurst back off of injured reserve were enormous for this defensive line. And Myles Garrett and Rodney McLeod continued to shine. And going into the season, I thought that that was the recipe to winning. Play good defense, keep it moderate, and if your offense just scores a couple touchdowns, you're going to win a lot of games. That was my position on Watson. He did not have to be the Houston Watson. After the first couple games in Cleveland, we knew he wasn't going to be the Houston Watson. He just had to be responsible with the ball and a distributor who could capitalize on the 2 to 3 times per game where he had to make a play. However, he has not been that in any fashion this season. To open the game, the Browns defense gets a stop. They get their offense the ball back. But on third down, Deshaun Watson tries to throw a drag route to Amari Cooper, sends it too high, and Amari Cooper drops it. Yes, the ball was catchable, but the quarterback's got to take the blame on that one. He is the quarterback. Ball's got to be lower, got to be more catchable. Gotta allow your receiver to run with the ball after the catch. That right there was the consistent theme in the game. The defense giving their offense chances to score, to put drives together, and the offense not producing. And again, it's not all on Watson. Amari Cooper has to catch the ball there, but Deshaun Watson has to make a more catchable ball where he can catch and run after the fact. And it wasn't like this was the only one. There were multiple bad misses. There was the hitch to Amari Cooper that he skied out of bounds. Then there was the out route to David Njoku, which was another terrible miss. But the really bad miss of the day, the one that you can point to and go, there's one of the key reasons why we didn't win, was the ball to Jerry Jeudy down the sideline. By no means is this a high percentage throw, but it's a throw that you have to make to give your receiver a chance. You can't leak this ball inside and allow the 2 defenders who are closing in on it to get a free shot at an interception. That ball's got to be outside to the sideline on the outside shoulder where it's safe. If it's not completed, it's just out of bounds. And if you get it within the vicinity of your receiver, he can make a good play for you and score. But then in this game, he's just so inconsistent that this ball's almost an interception. What this came down to was simply playmakers making plays. The only difference between Deshaun Watson and Jalen Hurts in this game is that Jalen Hurts gave his receiver chances to make plays. The first touchdown by A.J. Brown was covered extremely well by Martin Emerson, but A.J. Brown's just a fantastic player. He's a 50-50 ball winner, goes up, makes an extremely strong catch, comes down with it, they take a lead. Their second touchdown was just a catch and run on a mesh concept to Devontae Smith. Nothing about it was high level. It was just giving his receiver a catchable ball that would allow him to keep moving after the fact. And that's how simple the game can be sometimes. You just have to give your playmakers a chance. That is it. Meanwhile, Watson doesn't give Judy a chance on the go ball. So there's 1 for 1. Watson misses on a go ball. Jalen Hurts gives his receiver a chance at the go ball. That's 1 touchdown right there on the identical same play. Then on the drag route, Jalen Hurts hits it well on the mesh concept. It's wide open. He lets his guy catch and run. Then to David Njoku. Deshaun Watson doesn't see it, tries to throw another touchdown to Jerry Jeudy, misses David Njoku wide open underneath. And with the drag route example, it's not 1 for 1, but the general idea is that they're just getting the ball into the playmaker's hands. It was a wide open walk-in touchdown for David Njoku if he gets him the ball immediately. But Watson didn't do that. He missed on both opportunities, and that was the difference in this game. 1 touchdown on one of those plays wins you that football game, but missing on both leaves you losing by 4. And going 11 for 12 in the second half means nothing because you did nothing with those completions to score touchdowns. And we're not going to spend all day on Watson. We've beat this horse down enough. People know what's going on. People know that it is not enough. But going back to that second half that people are going to point to and be like, see, he was good. He completed all but 1 throws. It's like, guys, the bulk of that yardage, the bulk of those completions came on open passes, check downs, a lot of yak from the receivers. There was 1 very nice throw on the slant to Amari Cooper, which was a nice play. Watson fits it into a tight window. Yeah, that's a nice play. But are those really the highlights that we're pointing to that say this justifies a guy to continue starting? That's what I mean. The standards have dropped so low from the coaching staff, from the people who are supporting Watson. That is not winning football. Completing passes isn't winning football. Scoring touchdowns is. Being productive on offense is. We've scored 9 offensive touchdowns in 6 games. But beyond that, it's just the simple things, the glaring issues that were there in week 1 of Watson falling into pressure, stepping up into sacks, running into sacks. They happened again, and they continue to happen week in and week out. And it's not just that he's running himself into sacks while trying to make plays. He's missing open shots down the field. These are the plays that have to be made regularly over the course of a game, and they are not being made. If they were being made, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I don't want to hear about 11 for 12 in the second half. That it means nothing. It's an empty, hollow stat. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not an improvement. Sure, that's a good sign to see, but completing passes in week 6, we're far, far behind from where things need to be. The plain and simple truth is that it is not an acceptable level of play. He continues to make the same mistakes every single week, and those mistakes are being treated as acceptable because he continues to start every game without any threat of being benched. That is why every week looks the same, and is why it will continue to look the same as long as Watson remains the starter. Now, like I mentioned, this is not all on Watson. Once again, the offense in general is putrid, and that mostly rests on the shoulders of Kevin Stefanski, the man who is the head coach of this team and calls the plays. And boy, were there some bad moments in this one. The 3rd and 1 call, the end around to Cedric Tillman, is probably the worst play call in Stefanski's entire tenure as the Browns head coach. It is the classic getting too cute when you just need to be physical and get 1 yard. And this had a compounding effect on the game because not only did they not get the first down when they just needed 1 yard, when honestly, the offensive line in the run game was pretty solid between the tackles, probably the best it's been all year. You run an end around, you knock yourself back, and then you miss the field goal. And now if you're a Watson defender, you might be saying, see, that was the thing that made us lose the game. That is what lost us the momentum. This is where multiple things can be true at once. Yes, it was a terrible play call. That justifies a lot of the calls for people to say Stefanski needs to give up play calling. But this also happened in the third quarter with 11 minutes left in that quarter. It also led to no points for the Eagles. The Browns defense got them the ball back and they got another possession. So that was very early on still in that game with a ton of game left to play, and they couldn't overcome that. The bigger issue with Stefanski, people want to talk about the play calling. Guys, it is the penalties. It is the general discipline. It is the constant series of mistakes whenever they get into scoring position. The Browns as a team committed 7 penalties. They were all on the offense, 4 on the offensive line, and 3 of those were false starts. 2 of those false starts happened on the final red zone possession. This is once again where multiple things can be true at once. Yes, that is hard to overcome if you're the quarterback. That does not help your quarterback. Does not mean that Watson played a good game, though. It does not mean that it was all on the offensive line and the penalties. Watson played a part as well throughout the entirety of the game. But yes, at the end of the game, in the red zone, that was a killer. The issue is that that exact same thing has happened in back-to-back weeks. Getting down to the 3.5-yard line and making multiple penalties that push you back to the point where you can't even go for it on 4th down, and you just have to kick the field goal instead. That is on a head coach. That is a head coach's job, to make sure those things don't happen. If they do happen, you find a way to mitigate it, slash it, it doesn't occur again. This team has just become a broken record. The defense gives them opportunities. They might get a special teams touchdown. Defense scores. Rodney McLeod is one of the highest scoring players on this team. Watson misses open throws early that would get them a comfortable lead. And then at the end, they have the opportunity to make things close, but they blow it by pissing down their leg and committing the same penalties that they do every single week. And again, just because Stefanski has to shoulder a ton of this blame does not free Deshaun Watson from the fact that he's playing bad football for the majority of every single game. Multiple things can be true at the same time. In general, the team is just mediocre because mediocrity is accepted at the most high-profile position in sports. How can you keep your left tackle accountable for penalties, for anything, for the defense missing tackles, for the receivers dropping balls, if your quarterback regularly misses quick game throws, regularly misses opportunities to score downfield, regularly takes sacks by running into those sacks? You cannot hold the rest of your team accountable when the highest profile, highest paid guy is not held to the same standard. And that is why you're seeing this around the roster in general, but particularly on the offensive side of the ball. Compare this to teams like the Steelers. And I know people don't want to hear about the Steelers. Guys, I love the Browns. I am a Browns fan, but I am not naive. I'm not going to say that Pittsburgh sucks because they don't. They are 4-2 right now. Justin Fields just went 14 for 24, threw for over 140 yards and had no interceptions. Not that those are crazy stats, but he also ran for 59 yards and 2 touchdowns. They beat the Raiders 32-13, yet there are still reports that they might switch to Russell Wilson because they know that Fields limits them in the pass game. We're talking about a team that is 4-2, yet they are willing to make a change because they think, hey, there's a chance it could get even more effective. And we have shortcomings that need to be overcome if we want to make a serious run in the playoffs. That is what a serious football team does. They actively try to improve. Yet the Browns, who have lost 4 games straight with no sign of repairing things in the immediacy, with the quarterback showing no signs of improvement other than completing 11 of 12 quick game passes with a couple wide open shots and 2 good throws mixed in, we're sticking with that guy. And not for anything other than the fact that this front office and the coaching staff is coping, and they can't come to terms with the fact that they made the worst decision in probably sports history, realistically. Now, I'm not saying that the Steelers are right to make that kind of call. I think you ride with the hot hand. If he's winning you games, regardless of the stats, you keep rolling with him. But it's still a healthy conversation to be had. It's healthy for an organization to ponder those types of questions. Meanwhile, we have people within the fan base and the organization who are trying to justify the play of a guy who is in the same conversation statistically with guys named Jamarcus Russell. We still don't know exactly why the Browns are sticking with Watson. Yes, it's a cope. A lot of people also making arguments that they're tanking. I think that that is not completely legitimate. I mean, now that they've traded Amari Cooper, starts to raise some more questions. Maybe they're trying to sell off pieces now. And they're just like, hey, if we keep starting this guy, we might get the number 1 overall pick. But there is a cost to not doing everything in your power to win. Devin McCourty shared an anecdote from his brother who played on the 0-16 Browns, and he had this to say.
And that's the problem with losing. I think when you lose over and over again for years, and my brother was there for that 0-16 season, he said it to me. He said, it's a losing culture now. It's like everybody always thinks in the back of their mind, hey, we're the Browns, it's just not going to work out. And that's just the feeling you get from this Cleveland Browns organization. They have to find a way out of it, and I don't think losing is the way. Insert Jameis Winston, see if you get a spark and go win some games.
I think that's a fantastic point. The cost of losing looms large for a very, very long time. It tarnishes your appearance, not only internally, where people just have the belief that, oh, we're going out on Sunday, we're going to lose. It's for everyone else. It's for free agents. It's for draft picks who might not want to play for your organization if you try to draft them. At this point last season, the Browns were in the mix. They were a legitimate threat in the AFC North and in the AFC in general. Teams had a hard time playing the Browns, and all that hard work that Kevin Stefanski had put in since 2020 to turn things around seemed like it was making positive momentum. They were starting to believe that any game they went into, they could win. And now, whenever the opposing team has a 7-point lead, it feels like it's over. The Browns are shifting back to the expected to lose mentality, and that is such a hard hole to dig out of. If Cleveland had the Panthers offense, they would probably have at least 3 wins at this point. Yet we're being gaslit to believe that, oh, it's just the penalties, it's just the drops. We have to do more to help the quarterback himself. Yes, all those things can be true. They are too undisciplined. They take too many penalties. The protection hasn't been good enough. The run game hasn't been good enough. The receivers have dropped too many passes. But the quarterback has been one of the worst starting players in the league, without a doubt, at any position. There is going to be a price to pay for not doing everything in your power to try and win every single game. We already know Deshaun Watson isn't the future, so you have to make a change now. We're not even talking about going on a magical run to try and make the playoffs. We're talking about going into every game with the expectation that we're going to be great and that we're going to set the tone and that we're going to fight till the bitter end and that we have belief that we can win every game we go into. I don't care about the number 1 overall pick. I care about the trajectory of the organization as a whole. And that means going out to try and win every single week. So I don't know if they're trying to tank. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why they keep starting Watson. I don't know if it is just a cope where they just want to be right so badly. But they are going to alienate people in this locker room. They've already alienated the fan base. And it is going to be a sight to see when they try to trot him out against Cincinnati on Sunday. Now that the Browns have traded Amari Cooper to the Bills, that is one less weapon for a guy who has been struggling mightily. I have some different feelings about that situation. If you want to hear about that, head over to Patreon. It's the only thing that you could do to support the page, other than, of course, also joining in, buying a poster for our poster presale, or buying stickers on optimisticfanclub.com. But definitely jump over and watch our reaction on the Amari Cooper trade there. The Browns are continuing to sink. We do not know where they're going to resurface. However, this is the Optimistic Fan Club, so if I was going to leave you with some positives, there were some to be had. This was probably the best game they've had running the ball. Pierre Strong had some good moments. Deontay Foreman had a few good rips. And it is clear that having Jack Conklin back at right tackle makes this offensive line a lot better than it was. That could be very big, having Nick Chubb coming back. But to really build off of those things, those positive movements going on, getting Nick Chubb back, you're going to have to make a change at quarterback. Making it to the playoffs would be the most miraculous thing to happen in Cleveland in who knows how long, maybe ever. But playing a higher standard of football and getting this thing back on track and holding people accountable will be more valuable than anything. We already know what we get with Watson. With Mary Kay Cabot saying we need to know exactly what we get, we know exactly what we get. We get a couple flashes of brilliance here and there, followed by complete droughts of any sort of offensive production. But you know what? I'm not just going to sit here and complain. We all got to do our part in some way. I'm yelling at people to be accountable, to make decisions, to help motivate the team become better. I'm going to do a little something here myself. For every touchdown the Browns offense scores for the rest of the season, I will run a mile. And we're going to do a whole video on this once the season ends. At this point, I might only have to run 10 miles. That's nothing. I can do that in my sleep without training whatsoever. Let's see if this team can turn it on. I am going to run a mile for every touchdown this Browns offense scores for the rest of the season, starting in the Cincinnati game. So make sure that you stick around for that. Hold me accountable to it. Let's try and get these guys in that end zone a little bit more. And no, I am not a runner whatsoever. You can check the old Strava. I run probably once every 2-3 months. It's very inconsistent. So you can get to see me in pain at some point if they could score more than one touchdown every 15 drives. Make sure you are there Sunday after the Bengals game. We are getting live. We are going to be talking about everything. I'm sure it's going to be interesting. Regardless of all of this mess, my God, is this team fun to follow? Yes, unbelievably frustrating, but it is undeniably the greatest reality TV show that could possibly ever exist. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being a part of the Optimistic Fan Club. We will see you in the next one.